Welcome guys, today I'm going to be talking about how to read nonfiction and fiction books. So, a great book that taught me essentially how to read, and as well as YouTube, you can go check out R.C. Walden, a great YouTuber who I watched for literature at the time. But essentially this book called How to Read, literally How to Read, by Mortimer J. Adler and Charles Van Doren. This book is pretty key. I know it's kind of funny because, like, you know, kind of an adult, 18 years old, or, you know, whoever's watching this, if you're an adult, why in the world would I have to read a book about how to read a book? Like, but it's because every book has a different way about reading it and going about it. So, for example, in my 2-book-a-week challenge, I'm reading this, A History of the United States in 5 Crashes. Now, although it's nonfiction, it's also comprised of educational purposes. In that regard, that means that I need to be a little more slow and selective on when I want to flip pages and see if it's worth reading the page or gathering that knowledge. As opposed to, and you know, since we're talking about books, a little classy, got some coffee with me. Not sure if that's classy because almost everyone drinks coffee. Anyway, for example, like if we're doing a self-help book, I don't want to use the one that I'm using right now, The Millionaire Fastlane. However, if you're reading Meditations by Marcus Aurelius, you know, these are like essentially notes, essentially just paragraphs of text where it's just illustrating motivational quotes and things to think about as you live your life. So you wouldn't have to read every page word for word. In fact, you could just flip a page, select a select quote and be like, oh, that's inspirational, and you could be done with this book. Like, this book isn't meant to be read full through and out, you know? And same goes for The Power of Habit. I already read this book, but I'm kind of rereading it, but I mean, not right now because I'm on a 2-book challenge with this. But with The Power of Habit, it's the same thing. It's a self-help book. You know, you're just trying to gain the knowledge, the key points of it. And you don't necessarily need to read. There's stories here that will help drive the narrative and help you get a better understanding of what it's talking about, if that's something you need, you know. But essentially, you just need to look for, you know, how it says the prologue, and then you'll see if it's going into, you know, another area that isn't like pertaining to the chapter's main point, you know, like, so for example, it already starts out with Lisa Allen, according to her file, was 34 years old and had started smoking and drinking. So now you could tell here that it's talking about this person and how she's going to get over this addiction. It's important to understand that it's going to be context about her getting over an addiction, but there's going to be a lot of context about like her story, and it's like, if you want to go into that, you can. However, if we're just talking about getting through the book and driving the main points and just really fixating on that, then you just skip to the part where it illustrates how she was able to go over it, not necessarily how she got addicted and whatnot. You know, if you really just want to get the knowledge, you could just skip those type of parts and just like go to where the knowledge is at, not necessarily reading every individual, you know, information and biography on how whatever they got addicted to in this sense, or just like whatever. You can just select, you know, certain parts. That's another thing. Like, when I was starting to read, I felt like I need to read the entire book or page for page. Like, no one is keeping track of that, and it's just like stupid, you know. Why would you read the entire book of this? It's not like, for self-help books, like, there's just a bunch of stories, like a bunch of stories filled with like small pieces of information inside each story, you know, as well as like the big picture, you know, is found in just a couple pages. You don't need to read all of this. However, if we're talking about reading like autobiographies, or if we're talking about reading literature, that's something you want to read full and full, because there's no way you're going to understand every single information if you just skip 10 pages and be like, oh yeah, and then skip and then be like, oh yeah, this makes sense. Like, you won't know characters, you won't understand the plot entirely, and you won't understand the person and what they went through, you know, because literature is meant to be enjoyed as if it was a movie, or I'm not going to say YouTube video because I feel like a lot of people skip those, you know, for certain parts as well, but you know, it's supposed to be enjoyed and slow and for you to understand everything and be immersed in the world. Whereas for like educational books and nonfiction is meant for just the education portion, driving that content in, not necessarily the other stuff that is embedded in them. So, for example, like this autobiography of Malcolm X, I really enjoyed this one. It was, you know, pretty eye-opening on like all the experiences that he'd been through, and I wouldn't have understand that, and I wouldn't have understand what Malcolm X went through if I just didn't read the book full and from when he grew up to, you know, as he got older and became such a prominent person in history. So without that, it'd be like, what was the point of, you know, reading the book if I'm just gonna skim the pages? Now that's how you read a book. That's how I read a book. That's how I choose what book I read and how to read it. And I think that's how you should move on going as well. But a big book that I want to just hone on is just check out this book, How to Read. And again, this is one of those books that you don't have to read page for page. It literally goes into separate categories and for each book and how you're supposed to go about it. So check this book out. Hopefully I helped you guys out on how to read. And thank you for checking out my video. And I'll see you guys in the next video.